up with knight f3, to which Botvinnik answered with knight f6, c4, c5. The game took the shape of symmetrical English. Bishop g2, d5, c takes, knight takes, white castles, e6, after which white is now preparing the fianchetto of the queenside bishop, which will put a useful pressure on black's kingside. And then an exchange of knights on d5 also followed, and we see d3. Well, playing queen b1 followed by rook d1 and going for d4 is a more active try. And this is something which later Larsen started to play. For example, this idea has been seen in a game between Larsen and Polukaevsky played in 1967. But in the game we see a slightly passive try starting with d3. Rook goes on c8, rook a e1. According to Botvinnik, playing knight d2 and offering an exchange of light squared bishops is better. But in the game we see rook a e1, and in this case actually, once black's light squared bishop remains on the board, it's allowing black to gain initiative. Knight b8, this is the start of a long knight maneuver. The knight is coming to d4. f4, knight c6, a3, queen d7. According to Botvinnik, at this point there was no need to lose a tempo, and he suggests to go for knight d4 straight away. Instead we see queen d7, knight f3, rook fd8. Yeah, he first decided to put further pressure down the d file, and only then he will go for knight d4. No need to hurry. Well, in here Botvinnik suggests first a5 and then bishop a6, but according to Stockfish, bishop a6 is also very strong. Bishop a1 before a4, and finally black knight lands on d4. Queen b2, bishop f6. With this move black is provoking e5, after which there can be no danger to black king. The long diagonal is successfully blocked. Queen e2, rook c5, bishop b2, f5 and h4. Well, so far so good, despite the fact that black has a slight initiative. All in all, we had an equality. But this h4 looks very strange, which is allowing black to gain advantage. Capturing en passant is better. If here, then bishop e4. We have an equality on the board. Instead, we see this h4 move, and now let's see what's the problem with it. At this point, you can give a try to find Botvinnik's next move. Ready? In here we see a very beautiful exchange sacrifice, rook c3. Now if you won't accept the exchange sacrifice, then the pawn on b3 will drop. That's why we see bishop takes c3, d takes c3. Black got a very dangerous passed pawn, also took under attack this pawn on d3. Queen e3, rook f3 is an alternative, sticking to the pawn on d3, but even in that case white can't hope for much. There we have it, the pawn on d3 drops, rook f2, queen d4. This time Botvinnik is boldly offering an exchange of queens, which was accepted. He knows for sure that this position is won. Bishop f1, c2. According to Stockfish, this is a mistake, and in here Stockfish offers a fantastic line. You know, guys, you can give a try to find the most precise line for black. Ready? According to Stockfish, in here the winning move is bishop c5, and what is interesting, even in the post-game analysis, even in Botvinnik's book, this line starting with bishop c5 is absent. Now if rook takes d3, then a very beautiful rook takes f4 move can follow, after which black pawn is becoming unstoppable. White rook is getting pinned. Yeah, this is crazy, guys. A very beautiful position, right? Or after bishop c5, if bishop takes d3, then rook takes d3. If here, then c2, and again black is winning. In the game we see c2 straight away, and now let's see what's the problem with it. Rook c1, bishop takes f1, rook takes f1. This is a losing move. The only move which could save white's position is rook takes c2, and according to Stockfish this position is equal. Interestingly, again, in his analysis, Botvinnik missed this powerful defensive line. Yeah, definitely both players missed this line, underestimated the power of white rooks, and instead we see rook takes f1, the losing move. In here Bronstein landed another heavy punch. Try to find this move as well. Yeah, quite possibly Mr. Jurgis missed that move. He thought that after rook f1 can win. The move is rook c4. How do you like this beauty, guys? Right now black is threatening to go for a pawn promotion, and all white could do was to accept the rook sacrifice, but this time we see bishop c5, pinning the rook, and now the b pawn can step forward. King g2, bishop takes f2, king takes f2, and after b3 white resigned because there is no way to stop these pawns. White is losing. What a fantastic game by Botvinnik, guys. By the way, at this point I forgot to say that rook takes f1 is also losing because of this rook d2, followed by bishop c5, bishop d4, bishop b2. And then after winning the rook, rook d1 can follow. And turns out that there is no defense for white against this conning bishop maneuver. White is helpless. Instead, rook f1 was made. Now, maybe we should take a look at this final combination once again. You know, guys, it was an inaccurate but a very nice one. Takes, and there comes rook c4. White is accepting the second rook sacrifice as well, and black pawns are getting unstoppable. Thanks for watching. Hope that you enjoyed this marvelous game. Feel free to share with your friends as well, and in the end, must-win situation is almost an impossible task, and let's see what happened on the board. Carlsen opened up with English opening c4, and Pantsulaia answered with c5. Symmetrical English is on the board, and d4. Now if black captures on d4, then white can even enter the lines of Sicilian defense by going for e4. Marozzi bind against accelerated dragon, but instead black played bishop g7, and Carlsen said, okay, I'm going for d5, and let's enter the lines of Benoni defense. e6, h3, knight e7. Black could also capture on d5, but we have knight e7, knight c3, h6, and d takes e6. Carlsen spotted a pawn on weakness on d6, and he decided to go after it. Although it's not that winning this pawn gives white an advantage. Black will now strike back. Queen a5. g5 is an alternative. Then black can go for bishop takes c3 and queen a5. This may be even better. And then castling kingside. But instead we have queen a5. Queen d2, knight b4, a3, g5. Bishop goes back to h2, rook d8. Gradually black is starting to activate his pieces. Then lands knight d3 check, takes. White is finally castling, and black is winning back the sacrificed pawn. Knight d5. But one thing which we should take into consideration is that black king is still in the center of the board. Rook d5, rook e1. Okay, Carlsen sacrificed another pawn, but yeah, the thing that black king is still in the center of the board gives white a compensation. And now how are you going to castle? If you castle kingside, then there is this unpleasant rook takes e7 move, right? That's why Pantsulaia decided to break up the pin by going for king f8. Knight goes to e5, knight c6, rook a d1, knight d4, king h1, b5, queen d3. You know, the engine gives both players equal chances, but we have a position where it's very easy to play with the white pieces. And that's something which Pawn Sulaya fails to do. Utmost precision is required from black side, and it was after knight f5 where Pawn Sulaya collapsed. He made a serious mistake, queen g6, which is losing. Look, now white wants to play queen e3. For example, let's just make a random move a6, yeah, just for an example, then queen e3. And now if, for example, knight takes f5, then white has a very beautiful, can you spot white's winning move? Queen takes c5 check. Yes, guys, there is a back rank weakness. And if we move like, for example, g4, then there is also this bishop d4. g4 is another example, of course. I want just you to see what threats white is creating. There is even this bishop d6 check, which is again very unpleasant for black. Then knight e7 can land. Yeah. So turns out that in here, let me remove the arrows, the best defense for black is bishop f6. Covering some essential squares, in some cases even opening up a luft for black king. Now queen e3 can be just met with knight takes f5, there is no queen takes c5. But instead, yeah, Pawn Sulaya missed bishop g6, he played queen g6, and this is losing. Carlsen played bishop c7, harassing black rook. This rook can't leave the d file, otherwise bishop d6 check is coming and it's over. Pawn Sulaya played rook d7 but resigned after Carlsen's next move. Can you see it? A very impressive rook sacrifice landed. Hope that you managed to find it. And Pawn Sulaya resigned. Checkmate is coming, guys. If king takes e8, then queen e4 check. If knight e6, then queen a8. There is a back rank weakness, and that's something which made that rook e8 check possible. Whoops, rook d8 checkmate. How do you like this beauty, guys? This is really nice. Hope that you enjoyed the game. The final combination was good. Bishop c7, then rook e8 check. And feel free to share it with your friends as well. Kasparov e4, e5, d4, knight c6. Very quickly, Kasparov is deviating from the main theoretical battle. Now if d5, oops, in here if d5, then knight d4, and then black can even strengthen the knight on d4 with bishop g7. In the game we see knight f3, it takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop g7, bishop e3. And this type of strategy, when you are sidestepping the main theoretical battle, can be very effective in blitz. You can make your opponent burn time and gain extra minutes. f5 is very strong because this is allowing black to activate his pieces. Knight takes f5, bishop e3, and then we also see an exchange on e3, bishop e6, and the rooks are also gone. Yeah, the position got simplified very quickly, and we have a total equality on the board. You know, knight g5 is an inaccuracy. Moving back the knight on c3 is better. The problem with knight g5 is that this is allowing black to fork the knight and the pawn with queen e5. Knight takes e6, and in here we first see queen takes e3 and only then queen takes e6. Well, black managed to win a pawn, but as we can see, too many pieces are exchanged, and in this type of positions, that pawn doesn't play a huge role. Queen a4 was made, and c6. Black could also capture on b2, you know. This check is not dangerous. Instead we see c6, and the last pair of minor pieces are also gone. Rook e1, rook f7, queen takes d6, queen f2, queen e5 check, and at this point the players agreed to draw. Yeah, so this is the first game where we see a draw. Up to this point, in all games we had decisive results, and this was a somewhat boring game, yeah, right? If it weren't my coverage of this whole match, I would have never published this game on my channel. Sorry for disappointing you, of course. And in the end, she answered with knight f6. English opening is on the board, and then since white allowed black to occupy the center, black goes for that c6 d5 move. Queen takes d5, e3. Earlier, Firouzja has also tried knight c2 against Mamedyarov in that same tournament, but in this game he protected the knight. Knight a6. I'm sure this is a preparation by Nepomniachtchi, although chess engines do not like this move very much. As you know, the main theoretical moves are bishop c5 or bishop g4, but in our game we have knight a6. d3, knight c3 is an alternative. In the game we have d3, check, knight c3, takes, knight c5, and c4. Well, Stockfish suggests d takes e4 to gain a comfortable initiative, but in the game we have c4. The problem with this move is that with queen h5, black can almost solve all the problems, you know, and in this case black is just doing great. But in our game, after c4, we have a dubious looking queen e5 move. d takes e4, knight takes e4, white castled. c5, knight b3, black also castled. f3, and now white is starting to kick away his opponent's pieces with the tempo. Here we have e4, now f4 is coming, and it was in here that black made a serious mistake, played queen e7, which is allowing white to win a piece. Better was playing knight takes c4, although even in this case white is doing better, and the engine gives white +1 advantage, like an advantage of 1 pawn. And then h3, g4, and then bishop takes b7. Of course white's position looks better, although once again this is a better try, the best try in this position than queen e7, which is losing, of course. Knight takes c4 is the move. So let's see what's the problem with queen e7. Since we reached the critical position, please pause the video and try to find the winning move for white. Ready? Here we have it. e5 allows white to win a piece. The thing is that if queen takes e5, then bishop f4 is winning. That's why black played knight takes c4. Yeah, very nice fork, of course. Knight takes c4 and he takes f6. Yeah, white has a clearly winning position. Let's see how Firouzja realized the advantage. Victory is just a matter of time, and without much efforts, very confidently, he will now realize the advantage. The queens are also gone, so against the piece, black only has a pawn, right? Yeah. Then comes the g pawn, knight b2, knight e5. Black is hopelessly trying to create some counterplay, but there is none, you know. The first pair of rooks are also gone. f6, knight g6, a brilliant outpost for the knight, and then once white's rook landed on c7, black resigned. Now white can play, for example, bishop d6, and then bishop d5 check is coming. At some point bishop f8 can follow. This is an easy victory, that's why enough is enough. At this point we have a resignation. Once again, congratulations to 19-year-old Alireza Firouzja for this brilliant performance. And in the end, e5, c4, symmetrical English is on the board. In this opening, white is not hurrying to reveal his aggressive intentions, is not interested in going for quick attacks, but instead is calmly developing his pieces and usually is heading for a positional play. Meanwhile, the players are busy with developing their pieces, nothing special. a6, black is taking under control the b5 square, in future not allowing knight b5 jumps, and later, if possible, he can go for b5. Knight e1, bishop c6. Yeah, already black wants to go for b5, that's why white stopped it. Rook c8, knight c2. Interestingly, with knight e1, white not only freed the f-pawn's path, but also by putting it on c2, white can now go for b4, and thus white knight can get a really very active attacking position. Also, now with rook b1, white will put a further pressure on black's queen side. And only in here we have f4, d5. A strong move, of course. Black is striking in the center, is heating up the position, and this move can allow black to activate his pieces. Although after d5 you have to be very careful. Something which black failed to do, and in here he made knight e8 move. According to Stockfish, better is a5. If he takes f6, then bishop takes b4. Of course, from a human perspective, allowing this pawn go this far, reach the 7th rank, is not an easy task, but this is what the engine suggests, and in this case, actually, black can hope for an initiative. Instead, we have a passive-looking knight e8 move, and it was in here that white made a very interesting decision. Please pause the video and try to find white's next moves. Ready? Here we go. Wojtkiewicz made knight takes b5 move. He's trading off his knight with 2 pawns, but now he can put further pressure on opponent's position. The bishop and the pawn on b6 were under attack. That's why black made this passive looking bishop d8 move. And all in all, I guess that from white's perspective it's very easy to play. Right now e6 can be a nasty threat. That's why black played bishop takes d5, thus getting rid of that powerful knight, although black did it at the cost of allowing white to get a powerful passed pawn on d5 square. With b5 black freed the b6 square. Yeah, at all costs black wants to activate his position, but white is successfully managing to reject the offer of exchange of bishops. A takes b5, a5. In case of a takes b5, you can just play rook a1 and then rook b1 come after the pawn on b5. In the game we have a5. But let me tell you that it's strange that black didn't make bishop takes d4 move. In this case, actually, black is managing to get better chances. And this pin is not dangerous. Black can successfully protect the knight. This is, of course, a better alternative than the one which we see in our game. a5 was made, and now white will gradually intensify the pressure. g6, g4. Now white will try to make use of his kingside pawns. d6, queen a7. Look at this avalanche, guys. Rook c1, knight g7, rook c6. Yeah, all the time white is finding ways of intensifying the pressure. Already we have a hanging rook on c8. That's why the chicken rook escaped, stepped on d8 square, and there comes f5. Knight f4, e6. How are you going to stop these pawns? Just no way out. They are destroying everything on their way. e7. Already white pawn reaches the 7th rank and is forking black rooks. And you know what? After knight takes c6, white recaptured on c6. Yeah, these rooks will escape nowhere. We have a fork, and one of those rooks is going to drop. No need to hurry. This is a picturesque position, right, guys? Rook takes d6, and pawn takes f8 queen. King takes f8, d5. White is now cold-heartedly offering the exchange of dark squared bishops, and also is attacking this knight. g5, h4. And interestingly, at this point, black resigned. Probably with h4, white already completed the 40 move time control, got extra time, and black decided that it's enough and resigned. Well, of course, he could still make some more moves, like go for an exchange of bishops, and then, I don't know, go for an exchange on g2, but even so, there is no way to save this position. With these two powerful passed pawns, white can easily win the game. Okay, you can bring the rook on the 7th rank, right, and make an easy progress. Yeah, that's why after h4 resignation followed. So this is it, dear chess lovers. Hope that you enjoyed this beautiful game. We saw an avalanche of pawns. which had a destructive effect. Hello chess lovers, Soren here, and in this video I want to share with you a very interesting chess miniature which was played between leading Austrian chess grandmaster Karl Robach and Czechoslovak chess grandmaster Vlastimil Jansa. The game was played in 1974 in Sochi at Chigorin Memorial. In this game, Robach had white pieces and he opened up with c4, English opening, to which Jansa responded with Anglo-Dutch defense and played f5, knight f3, knight f6, g3, g6, b3, bishop g7, bishop b2, black castles kingside, bishop g2, d6, d4. With a transposition of moves, we reach the well-known position of Leningrad Dutch. c6 by Jansa, white castles kingside, and a prophylactic move, king h8. According to modern theory in here, the most popular move is considered to be knight a6. If knight bd2, then black can play e5, and if d takes e5, then knight g4. But in our game, we have king h8. Here comes d5 and queen a5. Well, it was better to think about the development of the queenside pieces. For example, capturing on d5 and then playing bishop d7 and then knight a6 is better. But in our game after d5 we have queen a5. Here comes knight c3 and a terrible blunder by Jansa, knight takes d5. It looks like that by going for this move he's relying on the vulnerability of the long diagonal and is winning a pawn, but everything is not so easy and this is a mistake. Instead, it was not too late to go for c takes d5 and then develop the queenside pieces, but in our game we have knight takes d5. And the problem with this move is that after c takes d5, bishop takes c3, white has a devastating queen d2 move, and black is stepping into two nasty intersecting pins. Look at this beauty, guys. And yes, black is suffering heavy losses. It's white who is winning. By the way, I have to tell you that queen e1 is also winning, but queen d2 is stronger. White is keeping his queen active. If bishop takes b2, black can lose his queen. That's why in our game, queen takes d5 was played, but here comes queen takes c3 check. So already white has an extra piece, right? Black could already resign, but resigned only after e5, knight takes e5. Another sparkling move this time. White is harassing black queen with a light squared bishop. And now if queen takes e5, then white can simply move away his queen. And again, this poor queen steps into a pin. Yes, it turns out that the one who managed to exploit the weakness of the long diagonal was white, His Majesty Karl Robach. In the end, a chess puzzle for you where the task is to find the winning move for white. It's white to move and I will wait for your answer in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Here are more suggestions for you. Feel free to check them out as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care. Hello chess lovers, Soren here, and in this video I want to share with you a game which the 6th world chess champion Mikhail Botvinnik played against Sargon. Sargon was a chess playing software for personal computers. Probably you know that Botvinnik himself was involved in chess program development. He was working as an electrical engineer and computer scientist. In this game he did not play his best moves, but only tested the program's capabilities. This game was played in 1983 in Hamburg, and now let's see how strong was Sargon. The patriarch of the Soviet school of chess opened up with English opening, and we have e5 response by Sargon. Knight c3 d6, g3 bishop e6, bishop g2 knight c6, d3 knight f6. Well, in here queen d7 is considered to be the main move, after which here is how the main theoretical line goes. b5 knight d8. This is a well-known theory, but in our game to d3 Sargon answered with knight f6, f4 bishop e7. Well, capturing on f4 and then playing d5 is of course good. And with f4, white is actually somewhat weakening his position, but Sargon responded with bishop e7, knight f3, after which we see castling by both sides, queen d7, e4, bishop g4, and h3. Botvinnik is sacrificing a pawn, which was accepted by Sargon, in order to organize a kingside attack. In here we see the exchange of light squared bishops on g2, and by sacrificing that pawn, white managed to open up the h-file, and now, relying on that fact, will build up his attack. Knight b4, a strange looking move. Knight d4 is a move which just asks itself to be played. Centralizing knights is always a good idea, but instead we see knight b4, after which the knight found itself on a very awkward position. c5, b5, knight c7, rook h1, there it goes, white rook is occupying a nice attacking square, and by a6, Sargon asked white to harass this knight further, knight e8. A very poor piece play by Sargon, of course, and meanwhile Botvinnik is intensifying the pressure, knight g5, queen c6, rook b1. Actually, there was no need of protecting this pawn on b6, and at this point already Botvinnik could land a heavy blow. Can you find the winning line for white? Ready? Actually, knight takes h7 is winning on the spot. If knight takes h7, then of course in here going for an immediate queen h5 is not good. Black has this knight f6 move. That's why white can first play knight d5, and if queen d7, only now queen h5, and white is winning. But instead to queen c6, white answered with rook b1, bishop d8, knight d5, h6, knight f3, knight takes d5, he takes d5. Well, in here playing c takes d5 and keeping the pawn on f5 protected, and then going for bishop takes h6 is another line which could bring white an easy victory, but instead in here we see e takes d5, queen d7, g4, a5, knight d2, rook a6. Sargon spotted a weakness in white's camp and is coming after it, but is completely neglecting the fact that his king side is vulnerable. In here we see the exchange of rooks on b6, and there it goes, f6. Knight takes f6, knight takes f6 check, g takes f6, bishop takes h6, rook e8, queen f3, bishop d8, queen h3. Yeah, black is in a very difficult situation. Queen a4, bishop d2. A mistake by Botvinnik, and actually in this position rook f1 is the winning move. White rook can both cover the king, and also white is preparing g5 followed by queen f5. But instead we have bishop d2. White is both covering the second rank and at the same time is creating a mating thread. But the downside of this line is that black king can escape. Rook f1, king g8. Well, this is a terrible move which is just losing on the spot. It's not quite clear why not king e7, after which the engine evaluates the position as equal. If g5, then rook g8, you know. Yes. And then queen d1. Looks like that we have an equality on the board. White king also looks very vulnerable. But instead to rook f1, black answered with a suicidal king g8 move, after which Botvinnik quickly finished up his opponent. Queen d7, king g3, f5, rook h1, f4 check, king f3, and at this point we have a resignation. There is a direct mating thread. If you play a move like f5, then queen h8 check, followed by queen h7. Yeah, this is going to be an easy win. Black king will soon get checkmated. That's why finally after king f3 we have a resignation. Well, it's not surprising that in 1983 Sargon played this weak, although on the other hand Mikhail Botvinnik missed too many opportunities, you know. Yes, I understand that Botvinnik was testing the computer, he was playing in a friendly way, but at the same time it's somewhat strange that he didn't bring into life those simple tactical ideas. In the end, a chess puzzle for you where the task is to find the winning line for white. It's white to move, and I will wait for your answer in the comment section. The task is very easy. In the end, feel free to check out my early uploads as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care. Hello chess lovers, Soren here, and in this video I want to share with you a very fascinating attacking game played by 19-year-old Garry Kasparov. Kasparov is on the black side and his opponent is his namesake Alexander Kasparov. The game was played in 1982 in Baku during a clock simul. As you know, usually the one who gives a chess simul is playing with the white pieces, but this time Kasparov was on the black side and his namesake Kasparov opened up with English opening c4. Garry responded with knight f6, knight c3 c5, g3 e6, bishop g2 d5, c takes d5, e takes d5, and here the main continuation is d3, where white is setting up this reversed dragon type formation, but in our game we have queen b3, an active jump of white queen with which white is targeting the central pawn on d5. And in here, instead of thinking about a defense, Kasparov made a very interesting decision and he played knight c6. He goes for a pawn sacrifice, but let's see, where's black's compensation? Knight takes d5 was played, white accepted the sacrifice and knight d4. Here we have the exchange of knights on f6 and queen d1, though the queen on c3 looks more active, but in our game we have queen d1 and this time we have bishop f5 with a devastating knight c2 threat. White blocked the light squared bishop's diagonal, but this time the c-pawn stepped forward. With this move, Kasparov both intensified the pressure on d3 and also opened up the dark squared bishop's diagonal. e3 was played, which is a terrible blunder, after which white's position goes down very quickly. Yes, white wants to kick away this knight from this active square, but it was better to do it by offering the exchange of knights. Knight f3 is the best continuation. If bishop b4 check, then bishop d2. Here's one of the possible lines which can arise. White can get rid of that active knight, and then we have the exchange of bishops on d2, queen takes d4, and after castling kingside e takes d3, the players have equal chances. But in our game, after c4, we have e3, which steps into a devastating combination. In here there are several ways of winning the game. Kasparov chose a line starting with bishop takes d3. He's sacrificing his knight, but is getting far ahead in development while keeping the white king in the center under fire. Though I have to tell you that the interesting thing is that instead of playing bishop d3, the engine is suggesting another insane move, castling queenside. The idea is first to move away the king and switch the rooks into the attack as soon as possible from the e file. If e takes d4, then bishop b4 check is coming, followed by rook e8 check, and then bishop takes d3 is coming. Black's position is totally winning. Let's go back, but in our game after e3 we have bishop takes d3. White accepted the knight sacrifice and this time we have bishop b4 check. Look at this dominating black bishops. Bishop d2 and Kasparov castled kingside. Another magnificent move, this time Kasparov is sacrificing his bishop. White accepted the bishop sacrifice as well, but once the rook is joining the attack, white's position is hopeless. Knight e2 was played and this time we have rook takes e2 check. White is forced to give away his queen, otherwise can get checkmated. We have queen takes e2 and bishop takes e2. King takes e2, queen takes d4. Right now white has a rook and two bishops against the queen, but white's position is totally lost because white king is stuck in the center and is becoming an easy target for black's heavy artillery. Rook d1 was played, we have queen takes b2, bishop d2 and c3. Here Kasparov also won that bishop, and after c takes d2 we have a resignation. A victory is just a matter of moves. One of the possible ideas can be win this pawn and then make use of the passed pawns. Okay, there are a lot of ways to win, that's why in here white resigned. Another very instructive game where once again we saw how to make use of the fact that your opponent's king is stuck in the center of the board. In the end, a chess puzzle for you where the task is to find the winning move for black. It's black to move and I will wait for your answer in the comment section. Thanks for watching, here are more suggestions for you, feel free to check them out as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care. Hello chess lovers, Soren here, and in this video I would like to share with you a very beautiful and instructive game which demonstrates once again how to make use of the fact when your opponent's king is stuck in the center of the board. With white piece is playing German chess grandmaster Jan Gustafsson, who as you know is the co-founder of Chess24, and his opponent is Rudiger Quersten. This game was played in round 1 at 2019 German Team Cup finals. Let's see what happened on the board. Gustafsson opened up with c4 and against white's English opening, black adopted Caro-Kann defensive system and played c6, knight f3, d5, e3, knight f6, black is choosing an offbeat line, and with this line probably black decided to drag his opponent out of the main theoretical battle and try his luck in uncharted waters. In here the most popular move is e6, but Quersten chose the second most popular move and played a6, queen c2, b5. Now comes b3. Yes, white is still keeping the tension on the queen side by playing b3 and preparing to fianchetto his queenside bishop, and g6, which is a dubious decision, and actually after this move black should make precise moves, otherwise can find himself in trouble. I have to tell you that this position was also seen in 2008 in a game played between Vasily Ivanchuk and Bu Xianzhi. The latter proceeded with bishop g4, and in this game Ivanchuk managed to unleash a very dangerous king hunt, thus beating his opponent in style. Instead of playing bishop g4, another nice alternative is e6, but in our game we have g6. Now comes bishop b2, and after bishop g7, Gustafsson captured on d5. Now he will emphasize the weakness of this long diagonal. Now if a move like c takes d5, then simply knight takes d5. And actually I have to tell you that after c takes d5, the best move is castling kingside. Yes, this is a bold decision where black is giving up a pawn, but according to the engine, this is the best continuation, and the engine actually evaluates the position as equal. But going for this line from afar looks scary. You are giving away a pawn in a game against such a strong player, and that's why black decided to try his luck, went for b4, a tricky line, but this is even worse. Now comes knight e4, and already there are some problems in black's camp. Queen takes d5 was played, knight takes f6 check, he takes f6, and this time we have a3. Right now white is simply threatening a takes b4, and once black played b takes a3, allowed white's dark squared bishop to take the total control of this a3 f8 diagonal, and black is in trouble. How are you going to castle? Black king is now stuck in the center of the board and will become an easy target for white pieces. Bishop e6 was played, this time we have bishop c4. White is developing his light squared bishop with a tempo, queen d7, and simply we have castling kingside, f5. Meanwhile, black is opening up the dark squared bishop's diagonal, and I have to tell you that black has a simple idea to play f6 and then castle by hand. d4 by Gustafsson, the rook on a1 was hanging, f6, e4. Yes, this is the basic principle to open up the position when your opponent's king is in the center. Here black played bishop takes c4 and we have b takes c4. But instead of playing b takes c4, there is a very powerful move which Gustafsson missed. According to the engine, rook e1 is a crushing move which blows apart black's position. Now if f takes e4, then simply rook takes e4 check is coming, and then queen takes c4. Yes, this is going to be a total destruction, guys. White can easily finish up black. Or after rook e1, if bishop f7, then this time d5 is coming. But you know, in order to choose typical lines, you have to be Mikhail Tal. And Gustafsson chose a cautious line and played b takes c4, and I have to tell you that in typical positions, recapturing becomes just a reflexive movement, you know, you're just recapturing without thinking. B takes c4 was played, f takes e4, but we are lucky to see that Gustafsson went for b takes c4, because very soon you will see how this line will give birth to a brilliant sacrifice. Queen takes e4 check was played, king f7, rook e1, and rook a7. Black is covering this e7 square, not allowing queen e7 check, but this is a very dubious square for the rook. Instead, it was better to play rook e8, though I have to tell you that even in this line, Black has no chance to survive. After the exchange of rooks, White can switch into the attack the second rook, and yes, Black's position is totally lost. The threat is queen e6 check, and if you play knight f8, this time queen takes c6 is coming. Let's go back in our game. After rook e1, we have rook a7 and rook b1. Overlooking White's next move, Black played queen f5, but this gave birth to a brilliant queen sacrifice, and young Gustafsson went for it. Here he played queen e7 check. I decided not to ask you to find this move, because I know that after solving so many puzzles and seeing so many queen sacrifices, you spotted this move in a blink of a second. Rook takes e7 was played, rook takes e7 check, and king g8. Well, if king f8, then rook takes b8 check is coming, and then rook takes c8. Probably you forgot, right, that there is also a rook on this b file. That's why Black played king g8, keeping this f8 square free for the bishop, but anyways, rook takes b8 check is on the board, and it turns out that even this bishop f8 won't help Black. After rook b7, we have a resignation. By the way, moving away the rook on c7 or on a7 is equally strong. In all cases, the idea is the same, to open up the dark squared bishop's diagonal and threaten a checkmate. That's why in here, seeing that there is no defense, Black resigned. As mentioned in the beginning of the video, this was a very beautiful and instructive game played by Jan Gustafsson. In the end, as usual, a chess puzzle for you. Please take a look at this position and try to find the killer move for White, which actually leads to a checkmate in 4 moves. As usual, I will wait for your answer in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Here are more suggestions for you. Consider checking them out as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care. Hello chess lovers, Soren here, and in this video I want to share with you a brilliant chess miniature played by Indian chess grandmaster Surya Ganguly against Chinese chess grandmaster Wei Yi. This game was played in round 5 at 2019 Hunan International Open. Ganguly was playing with the white pieces opened up with c4 English opening, and Wei Yi responded with knight f6, knight c3, c5. We have the symmetrical English knight f3, knight c6. We have the 4 knights variation and d4. C takes d4, knight takes d4, e6, g3, queen b6, knight b5. White wants to exploit the weaknesses of the dark squares. That's why Black played knight e5, thus covering the d6 square with his queen. Bishop g2, a6. Now White has 2 main choices, can either move back his knight on a3 or can play queen a4. In our game we have queen a4. White is indirectly protecting his knight by pinning the pawn on a6. Bishop c5. Black is attacking the pawn on f2. And it was in here that Surya Ganguly made a very provocative move and developed his queenside bishop, thus setting up a very cunning trap. I have to tell you that I checked up this move in the database, and it turns out that this move had been seen only once in 1989 in a game played by Andreas Bank against Steen Feder. Usually instead of playing bishop f4, White is castling kingside, but in our game we have bishop f4, with which White is inviting Black to win this pawn on f2. Not suspecting anything, Wei Yi captured on f2 and announced a check, but it turns out that He took the bait and he stepped into a deadly trap. Instead of playing bishop takes f2 check, it was better to play knight g4, after which white can castle queenside, and this is going to be a very sharp game. But in our game after bishop f4, we have bishop takes f2 check. And the problem with this move is that after king f1, right now black knight on e5 is hanging. If you move it away, then white can announce very nasty checks because the dark squares are weakened. And also this queen should all the time stick to the bishop and protect it. Here where he played knight fg4 and h3 by Ganguly. And after h3 actually black cavalry is in trouble. Here where he played a sharp g5 move, attacked this bishop, lured it away and then captured on g3, thus creating a mating threat, but Ganguly found the most brilliant and precise continuation. He first played c5, invited black queen to step on c5, after which played knight e4. First covered the f2 square and attacked the queen and the bishop. And also already one of the knights wants to jump on d6, thus announcing a check. Now if you move your queen back on b6, then knight bd6 check is coming, and then queen a3 with very dangerous threats, or after queen b6 white can even simply win this knight on g4. In our game after knight d4, as where he understood that his position is totally lost, decided to try his luck and went for a queen sacrifice. Queen g1 check is on the board. This is crazy, guys, but you have to be very careful because if you move like rook takes g1, you can get checkmated. But at such a high level, you won't see typical mistakes after queen g1 check. Ganguly accepted the queen sacrifice and captured on g1 with a king, and all Wei Yi could do was to resign. That was a nice joke move by Wei Yi, right? Well, I'm very impressed, you know, guys. Haven't seen a game for a long time where at such a high level one can crush his opponent just in 16 moves with a deadly trap. In the end, as usual, a chess puzzle for you where the task is to find the winning line for white. It's white to move, and I will wait for your answer in the comment section. By the way, I can give you a hint, and I have to tell you that don't look for a queen sacrifice. Well, thanks for watching. In the end, here are more suggestions for you. Feel free to check them out as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care. Hello chess lovers, Soren here, and in this video I want to share with you a very dramatic game played in round 6 at 2019 Dutch Open Championship, where the white piece is playing FIDE master Rainer Odendahl and his opponent is chess grandmaster Vyacheslav Ikonnikov. But before starting our game, first consider subscribing in order not to miss my future uploads. And now without further ado, let's get started with this fascinating game and see what happened on the board. Rainer opened up with c4 and Ikonnikov responded with c5. We have the symmetrical English opening g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, knight f3, knight c6, white castles kingside, d6, knight c3, e6, d3, knight e7, rook b1. White is preparing an advancement on the queen side, meanwhile black also castles kingside, bishop d2, b6, a3, bishop b7 and b4. Here we have queen d7, black is connecting his rooks, queen a4 and h6. As white is trying to organize his game on the queen side, meanwhile black will try to counterattack on the king side, rook c1, g5, e3, rook d8, h4 and g4. This move is like locking up the king side, but still black can go for f5, f4 advancement, which can allow black to proceed with the attack. Here we have knight g6 by black and queen d1, which looks very dubious. Well, first white played queen a4 and then queen d1. Instead it was better to go for e4, but in our game we have queen d1 and after f5 this time we have queen e2. White is going for a very dubious queen maneuver, believe it or not, but after rook f8 this time Rainer played queen f1, and guys, I really don't like this queen maneuver and all this looks very dubious. rook c8, knight b5, bishop a8, bishop c3, e5. Black is preparing this f4 move. B takes c5, d takes c5, bishop a1, and there it goes. f4 is on the board. Black has a really very dangerous attack. Bishop d5 check, king h8, queen e2, and f3. Well, another move which is locking up the king side, but as white has a very vulnerable h4 pawn. Later black can target it and blow into pieces white's king side. Queen c2 and knight e7. Well, according to the engine at this point already it was high time to go for knight takes h4 sacrifice and then play knight e7. With this move, black is first getting rid of white's light squared bishop. After g3 there will be no bishop takes f3 moves, and then black can go for g3, and yes guys, black's position is totally winning. Let's go back, but in our game after queen c2 we have knight e7, bishop e4, knight f5, and white went for bishop takes f5, got rid of black's active knight. Knight c3, rook f7, knight e4, knight e7, rook d1. Meanwhile, black is bringing his second knight on f5 square in order to target this pawn. Queen b3 and rook cf8. Well, it turns out that not only the pawn on h4 can be a target, but also the pawn on e3. So instead of playing rook cf8, black could go for knight takes e3 move, and this is very suspicious, guys. Why didn't Ikonikov go for this move? This is allowing him to win the game easily, and then he's removing this knight and then he's going for f2 check. This is going to be an easy win, guys. White can't save this position. Black has a ferocious attack. But in our game after queen b3 we have rook f8, knight c2, and finally we have knight takes h4. Finally, knight takes h4 move is on the board, which allows black to push forward the g pawn and then penetrate white's camp. By the way, I have to tell you that instead of playing g3, bishop takes e4 is also winning, followed by queen e7. But in our game we have g3, knight takes g3, queen h3, black is creating a direct mating threat. Now all white can do is to cover the g2 square, and it was in here that Vyacheslav Ikonikov made a terrible blunder and went for a queen sacrifice, guys. He went for an unsound queen sacrifice, and what is more interesting, Rainer Odendahl resigned. White resigned in here, but it turns out that the one who is winning is white. Well, guys, I have to tell you that there was no need to go for queen takes g3. Instead, black could capture on h4 and then later could bring into life this h5 h4 idea, either by placing the queen on h3 or on g4, depending the situation. Black is going to win, but in our game after knight d1 we have queen takes g3 check and white resigned. But the thing is that, guys, how on earth are you going to win? I have to tell you guys that when I first saw this position, I was just asking myself, but after f takes g3, how is black going to win? And there was no answer. So then I checked up with my engine, and it turns out that there is no win for black. This queen takes g3 sacrifice is a total blunder. For example, now if you go for f2 check, then king f1, and just no way to make a progress. You have only a bishop against the queen, and white's position is totally winning. Of course, you can announce some checks, but in the end of the day, just no way out. White's position is super solid. Even instead of playing king c1, white can play king c3. Typical discover checks are not dangerous. d4, and again, white is winning. Probably this queen sacrifice made by a grandmaster made such a huge psychological effect on Rainer Odendahl that he decided to resign without even checking the upcoming lines carefully. As you know, chess history knows a lot of typical examples where one side resigns having a totally winning position. Here is a chess puzzle which is taken from a game played between Carlos Torre Rapeto and Frank Parker. In here, Torre, who was playing with the white pieces, resigned, not managing to find the winning move. But unlike our main game, in here, finding the winning move is more difficult, because in our game, all white needs to do is to accept the queen sacrifice. And in here, guys, the task is to find the winning move for white, and I will wait for your answer in the comment section. You will be proud of yourself if you can find that fantastic move. Well, thanks for watching, dear chess lovers. Never give up without a tough resistance. There is always a chance, you know. And I will see you in my next video with another crazy game. Take care. Hello chess lovers, Soren here, and in this video we are going to witness another freshly baked queen sacrifice. This game was played between Georgian chess grandmaster Mikhail Mechedlishvili and Indian international chess master Kantoli Ratnakaran. The game was played on the 19th of June 2019 at the second Goa GM Open. Though this game was played just yesterday, has managed to raise a huge interest like the game played by Murali Karthikeyan. Now, without further ado, let's get started with our game and see what happened on the board. Mechedlishvili opened up with English opening and Ratnakaran responded with e5, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3. We have the 3 knights variation. In here usually black is responding with knight f6, but in our game we have this active and dynamic f5 response, which leads to sharp positions: g3, knight f6, d4, e4, knight h4, and d5. In here d6 is considered to be the main alternative, but in our game we have another active move, d5, bishop g5, bishop b4, c takes d5. So this position has been seen several times, where in here black was usually recapturing with the queen using the fact that the knight on c3 is pinned. But in here on move 8, Ratnakaran made a mind-blowing decision and recaptured on d5 with the knight. He goes for a queen sacrifice, guys, just on move 8. This is fantastic, and now let's see what's going to happen next. All white could do was to accept the queen sacrifice, after which we have knight takes c3. Another thing is that white can't even recapture with the pawn because white is suffering heavy losses, you know. We are already in the end game where black has an extra pawn and can convert this into a victory. That's why after knight takes c3, white played queen b3. Here black knight jumped once again and announced the discovered check. The knight is untouchable because of this knight takes d4 fork. That's why white played king d1, and this time we have knight takes d4. All the time this black knight is harassing both the king and the queen. Queen e3, a cunning move with which white wants to meet king takes d8 with queen g5 check. In this case black is losing his kingside pawns and is allowing white to gain advantage. That's why instead of touching the bishop, Ratnakaran played bishop e6, developed his queenside bishop, and already wants to capture on d8 with the rook. Bishop g5, that was actually a precise decision to develop the light squared bishop, because this dark squared bishop can escape nowhere. Now black will start harassing it. h6 is on the board, bishop f6. Understanding that the bishop was lost anyway, white decided to give it away in the cost of damaging black's pawn structure on the king side, but this is a mistake. Instead it was better to play knight g6. By the way, I have to tell you that bishop f4 is also bad because of this castling queen side, and there are some very nasty threats like g5 or knight b3 discovered check. That's why after h6 the best move is actually knight g6. Though I have to tell you that even in this case black is managing to gain advantage. Black can play bishop e7. If queen h5, then knight f3 discovered check is coming. Now if king c1, then bishop g5 check is coming. White should give away his queen, transform the game into an endgame where black has better chances. Yes, black has a slight advantage, a very active position, but white can still fight back and play for the draw. But in our game after h6 we have bishop f6, g takes f6, king c1, and black castles queenside. Black pieces are very active, and this is what allows black to get a compensation. Bishop h3 and bishop c5. This is a mistake. Instead it was better to play king b8. and only then play bishop c5. It was important to move away the king from this diagonal, and in some lines this could have allowed black to create knight b3 threats after bishop c5. But in our game we have bishop c5 straight away, which steps into this bishop takes f5 move. Knight takes f5, queen takes c5, knight takes h4, g takes h4, rook d4. Well, let's take a look at the position. Black has two pieces and a pawn against the queen, and black's compensation is in the activity of his own pieces. Yes, right now white king is misplaced, and this is what allows black to get a counterplay. b3, white wants to consolidate his position. Rook d8, rook b1, bishop g4, another mistake. It was better to play knight b4. Attack the pawn on a2 and not allow white king to come on a safe shelter all the time. There is this rook d2 check, but in our game we have bishop g4 and king b2. White is now managing to consolidate his position successfully, no problem at all. b6, queen c3, c5, a3, knight d5, queen c1, h5 and rook g1. And in accuracy it was better to play h3, lure away the bishop and then penetrate white's camp. This is allowing white to gain nice counter-attacking chances, but in our game we have rook g1. Now comes rook d3, queen c4, rook d4. In here we have the repetition of moves, and it looks like that Ratnakaran was ready to draw the game, but after rook d3, Mechedlishvili decided to try his luck and go for a win by playing b4, but this is an inaccuracy and allows black to get a pretty nice counterplay. Knight c3 was played. The move actually weakened white's queenside too much, and now white is starting to face serious problems. Rook f3 was played. This freeing the d3 square for the second rook. B takes c5 and we have rook d3. Queen b5, rook takes a3 check, and now black rooks are starting to harass white king. Bishop d7, queen c4, rook a4, queen g8 check. I really love the cooperation of rooks with the light squared bishop. King b7, rook d1, and we have rook takes f2 check. King b3, rook f3 check. Yes, that was definitely a mistake by white to play for a win. Weakened his queenside too much, and now black rooks won't allow white king to breathe. Finally, the pawn on c5 drops king e1, bishop a4, queen f7 check, rook c7, queen d5 check, bishop c6. Black king is in safety, no problem at all. Queen takes h5, rook g7, rook d6, and after rook b2, white resigned. Right now there is a direct mating threat, and if you play king f1, then you can step into this bishop b5 check. You are forced to give away your queen, otherwise can get checkmated. But the thing is that after rook b2, white could have prolonged his resistance by going for rook d2, though even in this case white's position is hopeless. But still, there are some technical problems to solve for black. White could have gone for this line, though I have to tell you that black's position is totally winning. But in our game after rook b2, yes, we have a resignation. A very, very interesting game, I think, played by Kantoli Ratnakaran. That queen sacrifice was just a cold shower for white, and I'm sure that that actually made a huge psychological impact on Mechedlishvili, and he lost the game without showing a serious resistance. In the end, a chess puzzle for you. Please take a look at this position and try to find the winning move for black. Right now black king is in check, but in here black's answer was surprising, and I'm sure that you can find that move. I will wait for your answer in the comment section, and meanwhile you can also check out these suggestions as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care.